Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Haze. I am Josh Hayes, and we are live on the Morning Haze on Keystroke Medium. Um, and what a great day this Monday is. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Um, I've got my coffee. I hope everybody does too. And I had a fantastic breakfast with everybody was making fun of me today because um, I have a running joke with my wife. I used to run really religiously, and I used to do races, and so I would carb up before the races and eat just a crap ton of pasta. Well, then I stopped running, but I still ate a crap ton of pasta, and so every time I eat a whole bunch, my wife gives me that that wife look like, and I'm like, hey, I'm carbing up for my race, but I never race. So I said that this morning when I was cooking steak. And yes, I know that steak is not actually carbs, but it was kind of funny. I misjudged that joke. So, but welcome everybody in the live chat. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me today. I'm looking over here because that's where the live chat is at. John, Christy, Nathan, Rick. Well, two Johns actually, and a pear tree, Kayleen, and everybody else that's in the live chat. Hi guys, good morning. Um, if you don't know who I am, my name is Josh Hayes. If the first time you've come onto the show, welcome. I'm the author of the Terra Nova series, right back here with Richard Fox. And we've just published our third book, Wings of Redemption. And I'm working on the fourth book right now, Hale's War, which is the working title. And my forthcoming Mill Sci Fi solo work, Edge of Valor, is with the publisher right now. And I have a Galaxy's Edge standalone military sci-fi novel coming out in the next couple of months. I'm not sure of the date, but it's finished and it's with insiders right now. I'm getting a lot of good feedback on it. So that's a little bit about me. I run, kind of run Keystroke Medium, which is the channel you're on right now. We do a lot of shows throughout the week. This is just my show I started doing to kind of journey, catalog my journey as a full-time writer. And that's what we're talking about today is becoming a full-time writer. So I want to go just give a little update on my writing for the last couple of days because it's been crappy. And then we'll get right into it. So today, my word count for February is 47,921 words, which is well short of what I wanted to be at. My goal for February is 80,000. I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm going to get close, maybe, but I don't think I'm going to make it. I got 2,700 words today on my ghostwriting project. And then after I'm done with this, I'm going to bump over to Terra Nova 4 and start working out some words on that. And then tonight, Josh Dazell's on the show on live. Just FYI, you're going to want to be out for that. I love the Josh Squared episode. He's a really good guy, really fun to hang out with, really chill, laid back guy, and his books are phenomenal. So come hang out for that show tonight, 8 p.m. Central. What else we got going on today? Rick says he's got 60,000 words in February. Nice work, Rick. Nice work. And we're making really good progress on the Cop Shared Universe. Reached out to a couple of authors that may start us out. We'll see. I'm still reaching out to several others and kind of see how we want to start off that series, but it looks really good. And the World Bible, John and I have been putting together, mostly John. John basically did a whole bunch of work and then I red pinned it. I feel like Ellen Campbell. I got his work and I was like, no, and just like red pinned the whole thing. No, he did a really good job. So let's see. I don't think we have a whole lot going on other than that. Ellen and I are going through the submissions for the near future anthology. And let me just say, we got a crap ton of really good submissions. I think like 98.5% of them are that she rated 4 and up on her scale of 1 to 5. And so that's really, really good. If you know anything about Ellen, if she gives your book story a really good rating, you've done well. So I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited to see how how that anthology rolls. And I've got the cover almost done, working on it a little bit, and hopefully we'll be able to share a little bit of that here in the next coming weeks. Okay, so we're going to talk about um, going full time, uh, which is a goal of a lot of people here at Keystroke. Not the goal of everyone, but is the goal of a lot of people here at Keystroke. And then just as writers in general, we all have that dream of, I'd love to be able to write full time. And since I'm going into, I think what is this, my third, second or third week. I lose track of time. That's the one thing about going full time that I really didn't kind of consider, was losing track of time and days. So I'm like, what day is it? Because I don't have to go to work. So like every day is a work day, but I'm like, I don't know what day it is. Um, we're coming off of a really kind of a, like I said before, a crappy week slash weekend worth of writing. Um, there was just kind of some events beyond my control. My son waking up super early and kind of interrupting my early morning writing time. And then I had all four of my kids here this weekend, and then Jamie was in California for her works like yearly annual uh, get together, I guess. The cool thing about that is she won Team of the Year for her company, and she does, she sells spinal cord stimulators, and her team, which is whatever this region of the country, they won best team of the year for 2018. So I thought that was really really cool. But she was gone all weekend. She didn't get back till yesterday, and so I had all four kids by myself, which is fun. But also means I didn't get a whole lot of writing done. And then on Friday, I stayed up really super late playing my first ever game of tabletop Dungeons and Dragons 5e. If you were wondering, I played a war cleric, or a cleric warrior, or cleric slash war. I'm not sure how that works. Um, they didn't like my first name that I came up with, which was Supreme Overlord Alpha Death Knight Chaos 1. They thought that was too much. So I went with Tyrannus, which I thought was the second best runner up. But it was fun. We stayed up way too late. My son, who's 11, played with us, and we played till like 1:30 in the morning on just kind of a one-off campaign. But it was fun because I got to kill the final boss, demon vampire-ish thing with a cross. I stabbed him in his heart when he was rolling around on the ground, and that was fun. So that kind of threw my whole weekend out of alignment, because if you guys know anything about me, I like to go to bed at 8. And so I went to bed at 1:30 and then woke up at 5:30 when the boy woke up, and all weekend was done. Done. Uh John Barrow says Mountain Dew and pizza, gamer chow. Yeah. We had, what was I drinking? Whiskey and pretzels. That was my diet for that night, for that gaming session. Which came back to bite me in the ass the next day. So um okay, so full time. A lot of people talk about, well, and I've talked about what I did to leave my part time or my full time job to become a full time writer, and kind of the things that fell into place, the ghost writing and a couple of the book contracts that kind of fell into place to allow me to kind of replace my police department income and then go full time. But I don't know that I've ever talked about what the steps were that I took, and not really even kind of planning it, but just kind of what precipitated going full time, what enabled me to do all of this and then go full time. So I kind of wanted to go through that, like kind of a step by step map, if you will, on what I did from roughly like 2011 ish, 2012 ish, to what, just a couple of weeks ago. We'll call it 6 years. 6 years from when I really kind of got back into writing. I'd been writing off and on for years. I mean, I've got a whole box of stories that I would start and write on for a while, and then get bored and um, throw away. I've actually, a couple of weeks ago, I pulled out my first handwritten novel. I've got a few of those in there, and I've got a few short stories that I wrote when I was little. I've got actually I think it's like 108,000 word thriller that I wrote on a typewriter. that's still in there, that I called Iron Grit. That basically his name, the main character's name was Todd Iron, and he was basically like a American version of James Bond. And so Iron Grit, kind of like the name. And then he'd go around shooting and blasting people and having car chases and stuff. Um, but it wasn't really, I mean, it was just a kind of a hobby. Like I'd get excited about a story and I'd write on it for a while, and like everybody else, you get bored with it after, several thousand words. Or didn't know where it was going. Or obviously, you have that, it's never, nobody's ever going to read it, nobody's ever going to like it, so I'm not going to write it, and just kind of put it to the side and stop, and then play World of Warcraft for 8 hours. uh so uh Gosh, I really don't remember if it was 2011 or 2012. I'm sure Scott could tell me. But anyway, I met Scott, started talking about writing, and really kind of got, it was right after I met Jamie. And um, I was going to WSU for college. I would get gone back to school for a couple classes, and I came up with this cool idea for a story. I'd had a couple fun ideas I wanted to write, and so I just kind of played with them. I got about 50,000 words into one novel, and it was fun to write. The characters were fun. I thought the concept was fun. Um, but it didn't go any. I got to like 50,000 words, and we really hadn't done anything yet. And uh, I think that was about the time I started writing Second Star. Uh, oh, and I wrote a short story called The Watch, which isn't published anymore. I took it off Amazon, and the same thing with Second Star. I'm doing some things with that. Um, but I wrote The Watch, which was kind of my first finished published thing that I did, which was a short story. I might probably put it on my website, but I took it down from Amazon. Um, and basically, what that story is it was kind of an experiment. I wrote it kind of inspired by Memento, which is a movie by Christopher Nolan, where the entire movie is backwards, and it's a really neat kind of structure. And so I wrote this short story backwards. It starts at the ending and then ends at the beginning, and each section kind of builds on itself. And the beginning, which is the end, is the very last part of it. I think it's like the very last paragraph is it's the twist at the end, but it's just what happens at the beginning and then precipitates the rest of the book. And so it was really fun to write. A very, very, the writing I look now is kind of amateurish, but the story was fun. And so, oh, hey, Bill, late notifications. Dang it. Hate when that happens. No, you didn't miss anything important. I'm done now, so well, we can all go home now that Bill's here. I'm just kidding. So I did that. I started. I knew I wanted to write military sci-fi, but at the time, I really didn't think I had the chops to do it. So I came up with an idea, which was Second Star, basically a sci-fi reimagining of Peter Pan, and wrote that. And while I was doing that, I met Scott, and we started to have our weekly writer meetings, going to get coffee, and decided to do Keystroke, which was really just us talking about writing. Um, so this is where the story starts to get not complex, but this is where all the pieces start falling into place. And the theme, which I'll talk about here when I'm finished, is really kind of the whole point to this whole thing that I'm doing. And so what happened then is we invited Ralph Kern, is who was our first guest on Keystroke. He was a sci-fi author. What intrigued me, though, is that he was also a police officer, and obviously Scott and I were police officers. He was our first guest. Had him on the show. It was great. It was fun. At the time, Keystroke was not a actual company. There was no LLC, there was no business, there was nothing. It was just the title of the podcast. Um, we had a couple other people on there. Nick Cole was, I think, our second or third guest. Clark Chamberlain was like one of our first 10 guests. Richard Fox was like eight. We had some really fun guests there in the first, really the first couple of guests we had on. And um, sometime after we had Ralph on, um, sometime after we had Ralph on, he contacted me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you've ever heard of, I think it's SFF Crons. I'm not sure exactly what the title of the website was. It's a forum, but they were doing an anthology. Well, Nathan was doing an anthology, Nathan Heisted, and he was doing a anthology called Explorations Through the Wormhole, and it was a themed deal where it was kind of a shared universe, but it was very open. And your story had to be about wormholes. And uh, Ralph said, "I read your second star story. I thought it was really really good. I think you'd be really really." I think it'd be really cool if you wrote a short story for us. And then Nathan got a hold of me. I talked with him, and he agreed. So I did. I wrote The Lost Colony, I think. Yeah, The Lost Colony. And submitted that to Nathan. He liked it, included his anthology. So thanks, Nathan. And through that, I got with Scott. I had this really ridiculous idea, and I was like, "Hey, we interview authors." And oh, Nathan Heisted says, "Still love that story, dude." Hey, thanks, man. That story is probably one of my funnest, most intriguing stories, just character wise. And so hopefully someday I get to write a novel with those characters because I love every. If you haven't read it, there's a character in my story called, his name is Ears, and basically he is like a super intelligent monkey, and he's got these big floppy ears. He's not really a monkey; he's an alien. But or maybe he was a monkey and then he just had some artificial like enhanced intelligence or something. But anyway, he's extremely sarcastic, and the whole story, he just is a riot. He was one of the best, the funnest ones to write in that story, and everybody loved him. All the reviews were like, "Oh, we really love Ears. We want to have more of Ears." And so I actually came back to that story in the third explorations anthology War. I came back to those characters and wrote them again, and that was fun too. um but anyway, we I decided, I had this idea to do these short interviews with all the authors of the anthology, and there was, I think, 14. And so we did 14 15-minute interviews in the span of like a month, maybe a month and a half. It was crazy, and that was on top of all the other shows we were doing, and Scott and I both having full-time jobs and still trying to write and doing the family thing. And so like it was insane how we managed to pull that all together. But we got to meet a really cool bunch of science fiction authors and talk to them and get a whole bunch of content out there. That led to more interviews, that led to kind of pulling more people into the community. And that's when we kind of knew that we had something with Keystroke. And so we started inviting more guests. We started, we jumped around from platforms, from Blab to, I don't know, I think we did Skype a couple times, recorded it and put it up, and we just kind of fell on YouTube Live, which is why we call it live, because it was the easiest thing to do. But through all of that, um, people started to read my stuff. I started having some really good connections with publishers and other writers, namely Richard Fox, who it's funny because in 2017, it was 2017 or 2016, I wrote almost nothing but short stories. Um, and got in an anthology with Patrice Fitzgerald, and Steve Bollier did a superhero one. Of course, Chris Kennedy did one that Scott and I both had a collab story in. Um, I won a science fiction writing contest on Space Opera Writers on the Facebook group, and Peter F. Hamilton read my story and ranked it third, which is still cool. Gave me some really good feedback on the short story. But anyway, through all those contacts, I developed a um, keystroke in the community there, but then also developed a whole bunch of really good relationships with authors, and that enabled me to get into really neat collaborations, like Galaxy's Edge, and that opened up a lot of doors as well. That opened up the ghostwriting job, um, and um, that opened up working with Jeff Chaney on his Renegade series, which we should start here in the summertime. Scott Moon is writing with Jeff now, and their first book, The Last Reaper, already has almost 50 reviews. It's only been out for like 2 weeks. It's insane. It's selling like hotcakes. If you haven't gone and read it, go pick up his book, The Last Reaper. It's fantastic. Um, uh, and so typically they say the full-time writer thing, you want to be a published writer or traditionally published writer or indie published writer or whatever. And so a lot of people go after this uh path of um in traditional publishing, it's publish your short stories. They get accepted into magazines or anthologies or whatever, and then you kind of graduate into novels. Oh, and that reminds me, the short story that I wrote for Steve Bowyer, his superhero anthology, that got me an in with Steve, which also built a relationship there, got him onto the show, but also got me an in for Athon Books when they first started. Um, and so Edge of Valor is going to be published through them, and got some really good connections in Audible studios for the audiobook. And Richard Fox, obviously, his books are done by Podium, and so I got an in through there, through Richard. Same thing with Jeff Chaney, and with Galaxy's Edge, got an in with Audible Studios again for Strikers War. So those anthologies that I was able to get into off of just doing interviews with people that I wanted to talk to and wanted to get to know as writers, all those little opportunities basically snowballed into this. It wasn't a straightforward, I didn't set out to go, I'm going to write these stories so I can make these connections, so I can get published, so I can become a full time writer. Had nothing to do with that. Absolutely no plan whatsoever. It didn't happen by accident, but it wasn't like I had this written down as a roadmap, starting out. And the reason I wanted to talk about it, oh, hey, James, James S. Aaron's in the live chat. Go check out his podcast, speculative work. Is it speculative work fiction podcast or speculative work podcast? Speculative work podcast. Great podcast. He was in my top five. So anyway, the connections and the relationships that I made doing those anthologies really kind of grew into this. And so I just wanted to say that a lot of people say that anthologies don't do anything for you, or that community is what it is. I think that Keystroke as a community will and has facilitated people to go into full-time status, or into just a status where they can be successful and they still want to keep their job. Some people still want to work, like some people still like their day job, and that's okay. They still want to write and make good novels and good short stories and novellas or whatever, and that's okay. Some people don't want to be full-time writers, um, but I think if you do, um, from my own personal experience, and then also seeing what Scott is doing, and then what other people are doing in the community, uh, you make those relationships and those connections, and you grow those relationships over time, um, awesome things happen. And I say that just from personal experience. 6 years ago, I never would have thought that I'd be talking to a whole bunch of people in a live chat on YouTube at 11 o'clock in the morning, having a beard, and this is what I get paid to do. This is my job. I think it's fantastic. I think it's awesome. And um, one of the cool things, and one of the things that we're striving for this year, is to help and enable authors to do what they want with their author career. The reason I wanted to do this show and have this episode and talk about my path, which was um, talking to authors, interviewing authors. Some people don't like doing that, so I get it. Getting into anthologies, meeting authors, and then collaborating with those authors, getting my story in front of, like, Chris Kennedy was in some of the exploration anthologies, and we had him on the show a couple times. I got into his anthology. His anthologies are awesome to get in if you can. Um, and then the authors that you work through those anthologies have really good things, good connections that you can get into, and build that base of writer friends that you have, that you can go to if you need an issue, or if you have an issue you can talk to what you're doing. But not only that, um, you somebody somewhere might have a project where you guys are talking, you're like, hey, why don't we work together? I know Rick just started working with another author in the group. I think that there are several other authors in the group that are collaborating with each other to do different things. So I think that's super cool. And one of the things that we're trying to do this year at Keystroke is to give opportunities, and that's why we're doing these anthologies. We're um, My hope and goal is to, um, even if it's just one, have an author in the group who made the connections in the group, who wrote with some other authors and some anthologies, to make that leap to full time. I think that that would be the coolest thing that we could ever do, is for somebody to say, I went full time because of what Keystroke did. That would that would blow me away. I would be fulfilled my entire life if that happened. Um, and so giving the opportunities for that to happen for people is, I think, the number one goal of what we're trying to do here. And so, that being said, with these anthologies coming up, the space opera one that's coming up in the summer, the mill sci-fi one that's coming up in the fall, I would highly encourage people to work and collaborate on short stories. If it's not something that you think that, oh, I don't, as a lot of people don't want to put their novel into other people's hands. They're very um, attached to their novel. I get it. So am I. But short stories are a completely different monster. And even if you just, like Scott and I in our first anthology collaboration, we wrote stories that kind of did this. Like, my story started here, his story started here, and they kind of did this. You could read them separately, but when you read this separately, you've got two different viewpoints of the same thing happening, which was kind of neat. The second anthology that we're in, that's not out yet, Hope is Not a Strategy, we wrote um, consecutive short stories. So mine happens first, which is a standalone story, and then Scott happens, which is a standalone, but together they tell a bigger story, which I think is really, really cool. And I think if we could do that more in the anthologies, I would love to see that. Also, with our shared cop universe that we are starting to kick off. I don't know if it's going to happen this summer or not. I'm hoping that it will. uh, I would love to see novellas that are collaborative novellas, or short stories that um, are collaborative in some type of way. And I would love to see authors making connections on these collections and these universe stories, and see them just take off and have wild success with them. I can tell you, we're not doing it for the money. We are doing it for the opportunity to push as many authors as we can, um, to where their goal is, whether that's full time or just making their car payment every month. Whatever you want to do, that's what we want to do here. And that's why I wanted to tell my story about how I did it, because I didn't do it by writing, a novel and getting 1,800 rejections. And then finally that novel hit and I got a big payday. Didn't happen. I still don't have huge, ginormous paydays. I get a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit here. Like I said before, going full-time writer does not mean that you're a millionaire. It doesn't mean that you make $100,000 a year. It just means you make enough to eat and pay your rent. That's it. And if that's your goal, I would love to try to make that happen for you, because I know that it can happen, um, because it happened to me. And that was my journey from, starting this with Scott, talking with, 10, 20, 15, 30 authors, writing into some anthologies, getting my work out there, having people notice my work, having people that have really major franchises that are phenomenal franchises like Galaxy's Edge or the Renegade series, the Ember War series by Richard, getting noticed by those people and getting offers to come in and write in their universe, which expands the audience. I think that is, um, a very plausible direction to go. And I know that several other authors are doing it that are either not in the group or that are just joining the group. I mentioned James S. Earn earlier. He writes with Michael Cooper, and they write a series together. Um, uh, their covers are brilliant. Their covers are beautiful. If you've never seen their Aeon 14 covers, my God, those are some of the best looking covers I've seen on the market here in the last, I don't know, several years. That they're just really, they pop, and they do some really cool photo shoots, because they use, like, I say real life models, um, and then kind of paint them into the scene in the background or whatever. They look really cool. Um, so let's see. Let me look at anything what's going on in the live chat here, because there seems to be a lot of thing. Yeah, Michael and Andrew Dobell. Is it Dobell? I think it's Dobell. He does a lot of good covers. I really like his covers. Let me see here. I'm gonna roll through and see if there's any questions. Because I'm sure there is. There's a lot of things happening in here. I really should just like figure out a way to make it ding every time there's a ding. Maybe I need to have an assistant. Oh, that's what I need. I need an assistant, an intern to read all the questions. Which is basically what Devin C. Ford did for Ellen today. He was her intern, read other questions for the Ask the Editor show. So I'm not sure when it's going to be out. It's going to be a good show. You guys are going to want to watch that. Let's see here. At Keystroke, maybe what anthologies do you recommend getting into? Uh, I mean, whichever you can. I would just definitely submit to them. Submitting is not a guarantee that you'll get in, but if you don't submit, we can't consider you. James S. Aaron says collaborations and relationships are what I am all about right now. Totally agree. Absolutely, absolutely. And it just, I mean, it's it's enhancing your chances for something to catch, right? So it's not just you. It's working with, four or five or six other different people, and you know, it's still your responsibility to write a good story, but it increases your odds of people seeing your story and liking it and then buying everything else that you have. Let's see. Um, John Bear Ross says, I am much too stubborn, I am too much of a stubborn smart ass to collab, smiley face. And then Rick says, John, there are ways, the best way, the way Drew and I are doing it seems to be working well, and I'm not a very pliable fellow. So I'd be interested, Rick, to hear what you and Drew are doing in your collab. Um, uh, t- 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 Consistently, Christy says, I think it'd be a cool idea to do collab. Barta today says, what can we do to get into the shared cop universe? We are, like I said, we're in the very preliminary stages of that. We've got the basic World Bible basically fleshed out. There's a couple more things that I want to do to just tighten it up a little bit. um but I've reached out to just a couple authors so far. I think the key for the success of the universe is to start slow. um uh Especially on the novel slash novella side. We'll probably end up doing is do an open call for short stories at some point. I've already got one committed short story, committed-ish short story, and then a couple novellas. um, but I want to be very careful about the launch and the way that we run it, because I want it to do the best that it can and succeed into the past the first season. And so to do that, I want to make sure that we have everything in place and we're not just kind of jumping in um, willy nilly with no life preserver on and just hoping that it does well with a massive amount of content. Um, we're going to have a lot of content, but I want to make sure that it's measured and done correctly so that when people get a hold of it, it's really good. They really like it and they continue to buy. And so we can as the first series starts to roll out and we see that it's successful, then we will start bringing more people in. Um, and the key thing about that is just patience. Well, I've never done anything like this before, so I'm reaching out to other people that have done it to see their best practices. Um, and uh, but I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be fun. We've got some really cool concepts. Um, and I'm putting together. That reminds me, I'm putting together the Kickstarter. Um, I said it was going to be in the end of this month. It's probably going to be the beginning of March. Um, and the thing with the Kickstarter is that most of the rewards on the Kickstarter are going to be author centric rewards. So everybody that watches the show are going to want to get into the Kickstarter. There are things that are not cheap, but they are cheaper than you would get from going to the source. Um, the whole point of the Kickstarter is to fund the projects that we want to do in the next year or two. Um, because obviously, without money and capital to produce the collections and the anthologies in the shared universe, it might not happen, or there is a possibility that it will happen and take longer. So the Kickstarter part of that is to bring in money so that we can fund the production of the shared universe and then the anthologies going forward. Um, the cool thing about the Kickstarter is that I was able to reach out. Most of the people that I reached out to are fans of the show. They provide office author services, and I was able to get them to give me discounted services. And they discounted them so much that I can still give you a discount and then make money on top of it. And so you're going to want to look into that if you have a need here in the next couple of months for author services covers or editing or formatting or advertising through Hank Garner's show or interior design work. I've got a lot of stuff that will give you value and you will save money. You're going to buy it anyway. I mean, if you're writing a book and you're producing it and you're doing it indie style, you're going to do it anyway. And I'm giving you a discount and you're going to support the show and the anthologies and the collections going forward. It's really a win-win for everybody. But it's just taken me some time to put it together. Let's see here. I'm going to read through here. Uh, 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 Life preservers are for sissies. It's fun. Um, yeah, the shared copy universe and the Kickstarter is not just for that. It's for that we have what four more anthologies that we're planning on doing this year. Uh, and so if the Kickstarter rolls and we have it completely funded, then we can roll everything at the same time. We can roll the anthologies, we can roll the shared universe. If the Kickstarter doesn't get funded, then we'll probably have to slow that down a little bit, and everything will probably happen, but it'll elongate the timeline because money does not grow on trees. And I wish it did. I really wish it did. The near future anthology JR is in what is today? The 25th. Ellen and I are still going through the stories. We've gone through most of them, and we will be sending out acceptance or rejection emails probably in the next, I don't know, week and a half. I have to look at the timeline and see what we were looking at. We have all the stories. I know I didn't send emails back um, to everybody that sent in. I just, man, the last couple of weeks have been crazy. And so I get the emails, send them to Ellen, and then we're reading them together. So I apologize for everybody that I didn't email back to on the submissions for the anthology. Let's see. Uh, John Bear Ross asks, Josh, on going pro with four kids, I assume the wife's job still supplies benefits. Yes. We still have medical insurance and dental and healthcare and all that stuff through my wife's job. So, James Aaron asks, one thing I focused on, or says rather, one thing I focused on with anthologies is making sure they fit with the audience I'm aiming at now. I've got some weird anthologies in my backlist which I could make disappear. Yeah. And that's the thing. If you write epic fantasy, and you don't want to pollute your bots or do whatever else, then don't submit and work on something else. But I think I think sci-fi and fantasy kind of go hand in hand. I know the bots. A lot of people get picky about their bots, so maybe something you want to look at, genre wise. I think the only non-sci-fi one we're doing uh, that we have on the docket is the urban fantasy one, and that's not till winter of this year. Uh, but space opera and mill sci-fi are going to be good, and we've got a lot of good, really big names lined up for space opera and mill sci-fi. I think you guys are going to like. Let's see. John asks, how many years until you could have retired from the? Well, technically, I did retire. I retired at almost. Um, Basically 10 and a half years I retired. And through CPOST, is the Kansas Commission on Police Standards or something. Um, they and the federal guidelines for retired police officers usually stipulates 10 years for retired officers. So I retired, um, technically speaking, um, and but typically it's 20. You can do 20. In my department, you could do 35. But yeah, typically it's 20. I retired at like 10 and a half ish. Yes, I did. I was vested, but I moved it all to a police to a civilian finance guy. Let's see here. Urban fantasy. Yes, urban fantasy will be this winter, Christy. And I think that's going to be a really good collection. I know that we have a lot of authors in the group that write urban fantasy, and so I'm really eager. And it's going to be a long time till we get there, but still, it gives you some time to really work up some cool ideas for the story. I think that's about it, guys. Man, we went for 45 minutes that time. I think this might be a personal record. It's a really good thing I talk. Like I talk a lot. Um, I don't see any more questions. If I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry. If I didn't get to your question and I missed it in the live chat somehow, send me a message on Facebook or just leave a comment in the video after it goes live or after the broadcast is done. Leave a comment and I'll respond in the comment or on Facebook, whichever. It's all kind of like a wall of text. Um, but yeah, that's it. That was me and my journey. It's not a traditional journey in that aspect of things, but I think it's a very viable one for anybody that wants to go full time. Those connections in that community and pulling in those. And I talked about it again on my show episode I did about diversifying income. It's all the same thing. Doing putting the pieces in place that will work to allow you to do what you want to do. Community and connections are big. I mean, huge, huge. Um, that is probably my number one tip on going full time is making those connections. Um, because I mean, honestly, you never know when somebody's going to break out. You absolutely have no idea. Um, I mean, I was friends with Nick and Jason, and even Nick before Galaxy's Edge hit, and then it hit and it just blew up. And because I had that connection with them, I was able to write Strikers War in their universe, which was a really, really fantastic opportunity. Um, and I mean, Richard had already kind of blown up with the Ember War when I got with him, but the connection I made with him through the show, and then just through talking to him and getting to know him, that pulled me into the Ember War universe. And I mean, I've got people that love my characters now, and it's fantastic. So I cannot overstate that enough. Connections, 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 and um, it will happen naturally. It will happen over time. Took me 6, 7 years from the time that I started actually really focusing on my craft and writing. 6, 7 years to go full time, and that was a I don't think it was luck. I think it was just hard work and making those connections and making those relationships. So um, definitely focus on that. So uh not seeing any other questions. I'll go ahead and sign off here, guys. If you haven't liked this episode, like it, please. Share it on Facebook if you would. Give us a subscribe if you haven't, and hit that little notification bell. I know people get weird notifications. I get them on my phone. I don't know if you've got YouTube on your phone and you can log in there. I usually get them on my phone more often than I get them on my computer. So if you're having trouble with the notifications, try that. I know that it works on my phone. I've got an iPhone, and I just have the app logged in all the time, and I've got the notifications set there. Um, Definitely hit it. Give us a like. Leave us a review on iTunes, on or on Podbean, either one, and just show your love for the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad you guys are here hanging out with me. And we will see you tonight on live. Josh Giselle is going to be there. It's going to be a party, and you're all invited. I'm going to have hors d'oeuvres on the house. Hors d'oeuvres. All right, you guys. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me. I appreciate it, and we will see you guys now. Oh, that reminds me. I'm probably only going to do these once a week now until I get cut up. I'm kind of behind a little bit. The last week really slowed me down on my words, so I'm going through some catch up. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a morning haze on Wednesday or not. Friday's kind of up in the air. Definitely going to continue to do them on Mondays, and then maybe every once in a while I'll start doing them on like Instagram Live or Facebook Live, and just kind of do some quick videos on there because it's a little easier to get set up and do them on there than it is to do here. So if you're not following me on Instagram or Facebook, go do that, and then you'll get notifications when I go live on there. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me today, and we'll see you tonight on live. Peace.